listening to Wake Up and Read the Labels, your guide to eating simple and feeling good. If you want to eat clean and feel your best, guess what? You're in the right place. Each week, we talk about ingredients that may be holding you back from feeling your best. We also talk to some brands that are going against the grain and actually using real ingredients we can recognize. Plus, we're sharing stories with people who are just like you, who actually woke up and read the labels. Welcome to Wake Up and Read the Labels podcast. If any of you out there deal with thyroid issues, gut issues, hormone issues, you're going to love our conversation today. I'm talking to Micaela Riley, who is a functional practitioner and nutritionist that helps women find the root cause of their symptoms and regain control of their health with a hands-on functional health coaching. Welcome, Micaela. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So a lot of people out there probably have been referred over to a nutritionist from their doctors after, they got to spend the amazing 15 minutes with their doctors for an appointment. And I like to tell people that you probably got a piece of paper that was like, eat this many calories, eat this many carbs, stay away from sugar. What exactly is a functional nutritionist versus, say, a conventional?
So with my training, I have lots of education and background in functional lab testing, which kind of looks at hormones, gut health, thyroid function, and then obviously nutritional strategies to kind of help the person achieve X or Y goal. And a lot of my training is in macros, quality of nutrition. So not only I want you to go on a lower carb diet, but what exactly does that look like? What types of carbs should you be consuming? What should your protein intake look like? And just really breaking it down to the nitty gritty, while a clinical nutritionist typically is just what you stated, calories should be X, Y, or Z. Just very basic guidelines to kind of help the person overcome extreme conditions. Also, while a functional practitioner is going to be more preventative measures. So preventing the issue before it gets to the extreme, or, maybe you are in that extreme state, but at your doctor's office, they kind of have no solution, which I have lots of stories about that, category of people, but it definitely happens very, very much. That's kind of where you're going to see the differences. Macros, meal planning, just really diving into nutrition in greater detail versus what your clinical nutritionist would provide you.
So it sounds like a more caring plan. Is that right?
Yeah, caring plan. And also, one thing personally that I do with my practice is really look at the client's background. What has their history been with the relationship with food? I think that's something that, especially working with women, is really important. Everyone comes from all different backgrounds, eating disorders and, all the things, and just trying to be as mindful as possible while still getting those outcomes is really important. I always teach on the quality of nutrition, which I think is something that's oftentimes missed in a clinical setting. Really paying attention to what they're putting in our foods, how that can impact hormones, thyroid function, gut health, while following protein, fats, and carbs. That's important, but also the quality of what you're consuming is going to be far more beneficial than, just making sure that you're staying within those recommended guidelines.
Are you wanting to eat better, but this clean eating thing's just a bit overwhelming? Maybe you just don't know what to cook, or you don't know how to find the clean product swaps at the grocery store. Well, I want to make this simple for you. You can get clean swaps and an anti-inflammatory recipe delivered to your inbox every Saturday by going to thelabelletter.com. Guys, or ladies listening, when we say quality, what we're talking about is foods made with real ingredients. So eliminating really that artificial and, quite frankly, eliminating a lot of things that are popular, a lot of things on your grocery shelves. Now, tell me, I saw some stuff on your Instagram, which I believe your name is Be Balanced by Micaela, which will be linked beneath the podcast. I saw photos of you or videos, and it looks like you were battling what a lot of people are battling, which is inflammation, which is like the swollen phase. What exactly were you battling?
So many things. I could probably talk about it for the entire hour, but chronic gut issues, bloating, inflammation. I could not lose weight to save my life. My hair was falling out, and internally I was chronically fatigued. Just had like a low luster of life, and it was just a very dark place. I didn't recognize who was in the mirror, and it was so frustrating too, because I was doing all the right things. I was working out 6 to 7 days a week. I was eating super clean. But the amount of stress that I was putting my body under and not nourishing my body enough was ultimately leading me to that place of just inflamed, hot mess. And I had been to so many doctors, and, it was just like the same old, go on birth control, quick 15-minute appointment, just like not actually taking time to understand my story. And also that I was like running my body into the ground, which was a huge contributing factor to a lot of my symptoms. But also, I had PCOS, and PCOS is a metabolic condition. My blood sugars and insulin regulation was just all over the place. And that was a huge piece that was missed in all my lab testing and, just different things. So if I could go back, that would be like a huge area that I wish I would focus on and had someone kind of help teach me that. But ultimately, functional medicine, nutrition, I learned that, my blood sugars were all over the place, and it was ultimately causing that inflamed bloating and all the things. I also had gut issues, which was kind of like a whole nother beast in it of itself. But yeah, it's resonates with a lot of people. That those pictures I feel very vulnerable sharing, because obviously it was like a dark time in my life. But I think once you're out on the other side, it's really helpful for people that are struggling with similar symptoms to see that it is possible to kind of reverse those things. And, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, for sure. So you were battling these things. This was before you were a functional practitioner. I'm taking it, correct?
Yeah. So actually I had been a group fitness instructor. So at the very start of all my symptoms, I got really into working out, exercise. I'd played soccer, but I kind of got into more of personal training, teaching group fitness classes, and was just super into the fitness side of things. And I almost did that too much to try to combat all the inflammation and weight gain. So that's kind of where the story started, and then slowly led me into more of the wellness side of things. But yeah, I've kind of always been into health and fitness and wellness, but more wellness focused after I had learned all of these things through my own personal journey.
So you had PCOS. Did you also have Hashimoto's?
PCOS, Hashimoto's, leaky gut, hypothyroidism, all the things.
Yeah. Did you do testing to find these things out? Where was that moment where you're like, wait a second, I have this? And then what was the first thing you did to try to remedy this? Or I wouldn't say reverse the symptoms, but put them in remission?
Yeah. So I went crazy with doing my own research, because I was like, why are all these symptoms happening? This cannot be normal I was in my late teen years. I, should have been super healthy, full of life. And I was just the complete opposite. So I had started doing a bunch of research. I went to my doctors. I was like, do you know what SIBO is? Can you test me for this? I had just gone to them and told them basically, here's my symptoms. Here's what I think it is. Luckily, I did have some doctors that were willing to work with me and run certain lab tests. So I had an ultrasound. I had the cyst on my ovaries. I wasn't cycling, but if they dug a little bit deeper, it was more of a stress related issue than anything else. But that was how I got diagnosed with PCOS, was I had the cysts on my ovaries. And then also symptomology with hair growth on the face, weight gain, those types of things were the classifications that diagnosed me there. I went to an endocrinologist, and begged for a full thyroid panel because for so many years they're like, nothing's wrong. But finally ran the full panel and I had the elevated antibodies, which are now down to 0.
Wow. We got to talk about that because I personally, I also have Hashimoto's and I've gotten rid of nodules off of my thyroid. My antibodies have gotten better, but it's like, I can't get it to 0. And I know so many people have Hashimoto's, think it's something in the air or the water. But people want to know how to lower their numbers. And also I'm curious I know you have like a blueprint of how to get rid of weight loss resistance or insulin resistance. So I want to dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, going back to the testing front, I mean, I really had to beg providers to like get these labs done. And it was just a super frustrating process for me. But luckily, you know, my doctors did work with me. I have time and time again, so many clients that I work with, their doctors are just like totally refusing to do any sort of comprehensive workup, which is really disappointing. But yeah, so I got a little bit of answers. Ultimately, it was like, you know, here's a pill. This is all, you know, we can really do for you. We'll see you. Eat less, move more was also a very common kind of protocol suggestion from them. And I mean, I was doing that. I was working out 6 to 7 days a week. And I think that being told that so many times and already running my body into the ground the way I did, it just like created this horrible relationship with exercise and food for so many years. Like I kept get that guilt from just like trying to take time off was something that I really struggled with. But ultimately, I was like done with hearing the birth control, eat less, move more. Here's thyroid medication, just like keep throwing pills at the equation. That I found functional medicine. I did work with a lot of different practitioners, naturopaths, and the person that I ended up working with, I actually ended up going through his certification process, Metabolic Mentor. Vince Pitstick is his name, and Metabolic Mentor University is the place of education that he created. And he's a really great person and just knows a lot. Cool. And really taught me so much about my body, but I was able to reverse all these things kind of through that process. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And definitely, I know so many women can relate to that just frustrating process. Real quick, do you think that, like you're saying, you got to reverse all these things? What do you think is really causing these things? I heard you say insulin. So it's the blood sugar spikes, but is it environmental? I also heard you say stress, but like what else could it be? Yeah. That's a really great question. And I think so many people that come into this work and want that, you know, explore that healing journey, I think they're always looking, and I know this was kind of for me, looking for that one smoking gun. Like, what is the one reason? What is the one root cause? And ultimately, it's not one thing. It's kind of chalking up to like your whole health history. What medications have you been on? I mean, they're now coming out and saying that birth control was like the first. I have a lot of opinions that birth control, I think, does contribute to a lot of the symptoms and issues that women, you know, struggle with. But I mean, that's like the first medication that they, you know, were putting women on like long term. And 9 times out of 10, the women that I work with, they've been on birth control, SSRIs, long-term antibiotics, just like all these medications that over time are going to cause metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, you know, just different things, chronic gut issues, leaky gut, just all these things that it can really lead to and silently over time cause this huge inflammatory mess. So I think it's definitely past history of medication, chronic dieting, over exercising, in a lot of cases, not to negate that that's the only reason, but most women in their lifetime will yo-yo or chronic diet at least like 4 or 5 times. So that is definitely something that's prevalent in a lot of situations. And then, you know, chronic stress, trauma, mental, physical, emotional, the state of our world causes so much stress for people and just the average, stress load of the average American. And then I think, what you just said, like environmental factors, our bodies were never used to going through the exposure that we're put under of all these endocrine disrupting chemicals and all this poison in our food. It's just kind of like all these little things that contribute to this large mess of dysfunction in the body. So I think that's ultimately like the root cause for a lot of people and all these conditions is just all those things that I explained, but it's an accumulation of them. It's not just like one exposure to microplastics, if that makes sense.
Clean eating is confusing. Let's make it simple. I got you covered with my new Read the Labels app. Just head to the App Store, search for Read the Labels app, and start scanning your groceries to see if they're clean or not clean.
Yeah. I like to tell people basically your body's a bucket. And when your bucket is filled with so many toxins, it's spilling over at that point. And that's when you start to see the symptoms. So if you can keep that toxic burden load from kind of, tumbling over, then you can kind of keep your symptoms at bay. So as far as Hashimoto's, what is the most important test someone can get? And where's the first step they should start for, say, weight loss or getting some symptoms to be suppressed?
Yeah. So with Hashimoto's, you have to look at what is contributing to the elevated antibodies, which is going to be present if you do have Hashimoto's. So it's an immune system issue. So you have to start looking at all those immunological triggers, stress, gut issues, toxin exposure, just all those things that can really link to and contribute to immune system dysregulation. So for most Hashimoto's or even hypothyroidism cases, gut is where I like to start first. So testing with something like a GI map stool test to really look at the gut microbiome, all the bacteria that's in there that can contribute to inflammation, increased immune response. The gut and the immune system go hand in hand. So that's a really great first place that I like to start. Avoiding gluten is another really, really big one. Gluten increases inflammation and can actually increase those thyroid antibodies. So it's really important to go completely gluten-free. If you do have Hashimoto's, there is science out there that, connects the dots with those two things. And then nutrient deficiencies is another one that a lot of people, I believe, overlook. And obviously, if your gut is, a wreck, you're not able to digest and absorb things properly, then obviously you're going to have nutrient deficiencies. But looking at iodine, zinc, selenium, all of those different vitamins and minerals are needed to create and convert thyroid hormone. So really just replenishing and dosing people adequately in those areas can really help with symptom relief and even weight loss from, just a metabolic perspective. So that's a really big area that I like to look. Vitamin D is another really big one that can impact immune function. So just looking at all of your nutrients. Iodine is something that I like to test in a lot of my clients, and most people that have Hashimoto's are like significantly low, like totally low. So doing higher doses of iodine prescribed safely can be really helpful for someone that has hypothyroidism or even Hashimoto's. So that's an area that I like to look at. So gut issues, nutrient deficiencies, and then stress. That cortisol can really suppress T3 levels, increase TSH, stimulate your immune system. So that's just going to cause more inflammation and thyroid dysfunction overall. So those are just kind of like the main areas that I like to look at. And then overall hormone balance. So if someone's super estrogen dominant, that can also cause or increase, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, things of that nature. And then the last bucket that I would say to really focus on is your blood sugars. So metabolic dysfunction, elevated blood sugars, insulin resistance, all of those things are going to cause the weight issue. Alongside, the hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, because we know the thyroid is that metabolic driver. But if your blood sugars are a mess, which most people's are, then it's just going to contribute to the similar symptoms that the thyroid can present with.
Yeah, most people don't realize, like I've heard you talk about the gut, heard you talk about nutrient deficiencies, your cortisol, which is your stress, your adrenals, your blood sugar levels, your vitamin D, like all these things are working together, right? It's a system. And so having a few of them off can make your thyroid suppress. So it's not working. And then you get those thyroid suppression issues like hypothyroid, which is sluggish. Most people just think, oh, I got my thyroid tested and it looks okay and things are fine, but they don't realize where I think functional lab testing comes in. Correct me if I'm wrong, that you need to be looking at the system as a whole as opposed to just your thyroid as one piece, right?
Yeah, totally. I would argue too, that's the case for any condition that you have or any symptom that you're presenting with. It really is that 360 view that you need to take with looking at the body. And I think that's where Western medicine really fails a lot of people, especially with thyroid issues. You know, you go to your doctor, they test the TSH, it might be a little bit elevated, but we know that can be thrown off by so many different things. I always like to say the thyroid is really dramatic. You know, so many of those little factors are going to cause minor fluctuations. So if you're not getting the full picture, looking at all those areas, then they're just going to give you thyroid medication and not solve the actual problem, which is your gut, stress, nutrient deficiencies, hormone imbalance, toxic exposure. So you really have to look at the whole picture. And the same thing goes for something like PCOS. You know, you have to look at your metabolism, your stress hormone, your insulin, like everything kind of chalks up to be this hormone or coined hormone, you know, issue that you have. But yes, it's very much looking at the whole picture. And I mean, my story, I think, aligns with that perfectly. I had this whole like inflammatory lifestyle that I was following and, you know, just so many things going on that a pill was only going to mask the symptoms that I was struggling with.
Yeah. And so let's see, America's got a problem, right? We're getting sicker. We're more overweight every single year. And the buzzword right now and the buzz product and the buzz solution for people is Ozempic. Yeah. So I want to dive into that. I've never talked about Ozempic on any of my podcasts, and I think it would be a great search for people. They're going to be like, yeah, I want to know more information about that. There might be some people out there that need it. You know, they need to lose 100 pounds. There's others that might just have that 10 to 20 pound they're just stagnant. And so let's dive into exactly what Ozempic does to your body. Is it safe? And is it the only, is there another alternative to this that can be just as impactful and beneficial?
Yeah, good question. I think it's definitely a loaded answer because it's going to be totally case dependent. I think there's definitely your category of people and women that benefit greatly from something like a GLP-1 Ozempic. And I think the media and marketing influencers that are kind of talking about it, using it incorrectly, probably they are more in the category where they have a little bit of weight to lose. But honestly, if you look at their nutrition and just increase their protein intake, maybe add in some strength training, it's going to probably get them the results that they want. But most people think, oh, Ozempic, appetite suppressant, that's all it does. But really, from a cellular level, it's helping shuttle glucose into your cells and also make your cells more insulin sensitive, which is what everybody wants, especially if you have something like insulin resistance. So for that category of people, it can be really, really helpful to get the cells more sensitive to that glucose signal, or insulin signal rather. So for those types of women, yes, it is very helpful. And it is something that I use in my practice, GLP-1, but microdosing it. So not going up to the full recommended dose. In small doses, it can be really helpful.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, she's a medical sales rep and she does sell Ozempic, but she's very anti it. She's like, no, but I did use it, not Ozempic, but she's used peptides, the GLP-1, and she's done the microdose. And she's like, it was very effective after I had a baby. And she basically explained it to me that you got these peptides and they're effective. And then Ozempic kind of put their little ingredients in it to trademark it to be Ozempic. And it's just, is Ozempic like a one bill fits everyone type thing? Like everybody's kind of getting the same thing? Like how does microdosing GLP-1 differ from going to just a random clinic and getting Ozempic?
So I think if you go to a random med spa clinic, whatever, they're going to put you on the top dose of Ozempic, and that's going to kind of be your protocol. But for someone who's working with someone like a functional provider, we can control that dose because a lot of times we have you doing it at home. But taking small amounts of it while you're doing other nutritional strategies such as carb cycling, following a low glycemic index, nutrition plan, just monitoring your blood sugars, just like really focusing on all the lifestyle factors while you're using small doses of that GLP-1, I think gets people better results. And also you don't have that rebound effect at the end, as if somebody who's going to go to a med spa, they're just going to give you Ozempic, tell you to eat healthy, strength train, and, just like very basic guidelines. Whereas if you work with someone like myself, we have you tracking the blood sugars, making sure that things are staying stable, adjusting those macronutrients so that we can really get you the best results possible without having that rebound effect at the end. And then also put you on, a good training program to help you build muscle, and all the things. So I think in the right scenario, it can be super helpful. There's also more research coming out that it can be helpful for immune system issues. So even perimenopause, menopause clients, it's great for those women because a lot of them go on hormones and experience that, inflammatory response, water retention, blood sugar issues, and doing it in small doses can help just really keep things at bay and balance blood sugars and help control that inflammation that can happen within the body. So I think in the right scenario, it does make a lot of sense, but I think the marketing that is just like, oh, it's an appetite suppressant, it's going to help me magically lose weight, that is definitely not the clinical application that should be used.
Okay, good to know. Do the people that use it, say in microdosing, are you prescribing it to them because they just cannot lose weight, or is it so that you can lose weight quicker? Is it more than losing weight? And then do they have to stay on it long term to keep the effects? Like once they lose their weight, does it come back because they're not microdosing anymore?
So the first question you asked about, what was the first question you asked? Can you repeat that? Sorry.
That's a good question. I have a lot of questions. So you're dealing with someone that wants to lose 10 to 20 pounds. Are you trying other things before you get into microdosing, or is it like this is the protocol? This is the best place to start?
Yeah, good question. And I think that's, a lot of people are like, you just need to go on a calorie deficit, just do this and eat less and you're going to be good. But no, definitely. I mean, the clients that I work with, I at least make them walk through a 12-week protocol to try to actually see if they are insulin resistant, weight loss resistant. Is their body truly resistant to what they're doing, while looking at all the other factors? Have they underate for X amount of years? Is their metabolism truly just downregulated and they need to feed their system up to be able to lose the weight? Or, so many other factors go into play. But 9 times out of 10, the clients that I work with, or even 10 times out of 10, I would strongly say anyone that I'm putting or suggesting it to has truly done all the things. And this tool, I like to reference it as a tool. It's only going to help them get the results that they want, but also give them a little bit of metabolic flexibility, because a lot of these women, they're going to do the keto diet or low carb for their whole life, or even carnivore, and it's still hard for them to lose any sort of weight or just, feel less inflamed. So I think from that aspect of just having a little bit of flexibility, if you have something like a GLP-1 in, or you can have a higher carb dinner, or, just feel like you can live your life a little bit, that's where it becomes a little bit helpful for those individuals. So definitely nobody's coming in and, just like we're putting it into the equation and putting it on a weight loss program. I think that's obviously really irresponsible. Looking at the complete picture and using it in a responsible way is really important. And then to follow up with your other question about coming off of it
long term. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a year-long stint of it, depending on how much the person has to lose, is kind of what you can expect. And then slowly titrating off. If you do all the right things and build muscle while you're on it, and, just really focus on your nutrition and keep the blood sugar tracking in place, I've seen a lot of women be able to go to like a really small maintenance dose, and even just extend out the amount of times they're doing it. So instead of once weekly, go to something like once a month, or even once every other month, just maybe a little bit of something into it. But the women that I have worked with and that have come off of it have a minor fluctuation in weight, 5 to 10 pounds, and they're still dramatically less than what they were once before. So yeah. And then there's also a lot of other peptides out there too. Insulin growth factor, like there's other techniques and peptides out there that you can use that aren't GLP-1, but for most people that I see at least have metabolic dysfunction. So the GLP-1 is going to be probably the best fit.
Okay. Now you talked about hormones. Is there a way for women to balance their hormones naturally?
Yes, you can definitely balance your hormones naturally, but once you hit that perimenopause, menopause age range, the pros outweigh the cons on hormone replacement therapy. I work with and mentor under Dr. Carrie Jones, who talks about this a lot, but the benefits of hormone replacement therapy are really, really significant. And even just from, a mental level, estrogen has been shown to help serotonin, dopamine, just like really help support someone mentally. And I know women in that age range, menopause, perimenopause, so many symptoms start coming out of nowhere. So really just being able to manage those symptoms as best you can is going to be super helpful. But it would be pretty impossible naturally to make any sort of movement in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone without the use of something like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Okay, good to know. Well, your information has been amazing. Tell all the listeners what it's like to work with you, how they can do that.
Yeah, totally. So my practice is 100% virtual, which is really nice because I work with women all around the world. If you're interested in getting some of the lab testing or access to hormone replacement therapy that I've mentioned, visit my website, which is BeBalanced.co and BeBalanced.co. And you can apply to work with us, view all the services. And in the new year, actually, I'll be having some, just if you want to do a functional lab test and get some answers. And, that's kind of it. That'll be offered in the new year. So you can look at that. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. Find me on Instagram, Be Balanced by Micaela. I have lots of free information on there as well. So you can check that out. I also have a membership too. So if you're just looking for like workouts, nutrition challenges, you can join my membership, and that'll be a great way to kind of start your journey if you're just starting out with everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. You can check out all the links below and follow Micaela on social media, check out her website. And hopefully our conversation helped someone, which I'm sure it did, listening, that they know you can find your root cause. You can put your symptoms into remission. You just need some good functional lab testing, and you need to work with a good functional medicine doctor, practitioner. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wake Up and Read the Labels. If you like this episode, guess what? We want you to share it. We'd love that. Share it with a friend and leave us a review. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or really wherever you're listening to your podcast. For more information, visit us at wakeupandreadthelabels.com.